Warning: the content and views expressed on the lab by host and guest is strictly for entertainment and educational purposes and should not be mistaken as financial advice. A guest appearance by representatives of crypto projects or any other organization does not constitute an endorsement by the Alchemist Project. We strongly encourage all of our listeners to perform their own due diligence and consult a qualified professional when considering any investments of any kind. Welcome back to The Lab, a podcast brought to you by the Alchemist Coin Project. My name is Sae'von Springer, and I'll be your host as we dive deep into the why behind the top builders, innovators, contributors, and communities in the crypto and blockchain ecosystem. Let's get into it. But first, a quick word from our partners. The CRUCIBLE NFT project is pioneering next-gen NFTs, combining utility and generative art to create something truly unique. The CRUCIBLE is a smart wallet that allows you to subscribe to multiple rewards programs at once, providing you with a safer and more seamless DeFi experience. Plus, you get access to your very own generative art Crucible, which evolves over time as you interact with your Crucible. It is truly spectacular. See what all the hype is about and head to crucible.alchemist.wtf and mint your Crucible today. Now for those at the back, that's crucible.alchemist.wtf and share your Crucible with us on Twitter using the hashtag NextGenNFTs. Great day, great day. Welcome back to The Lab. It's Sae'von Springer here, your host. And you know how we do it around here. We sit down with the top builders, contributors, movers and shakers in this crypto space, Web3, NFTs, all of that. And we break down their processes, how they're seeing things, and their tips for how to successfully build in this ecosystem. And if there's ever been a time where that is critical advice, now may just be that time. So before we get into it today with our special guest, and I'm partial to this one because as much as new things come about in this space, and there is a ton of innovation in this sector, everything is still built upon particular foundational pieces, bedrock structures that everything must interact on. And today's guest is definitely integral in working on something I think is pretty cool in that wheelhouse. So before we jump into that, let me go over some of our Alchemist community updates for the week. So update number one, Alchemist is incubating a new product. All right, now, as it already stands, there is Copper, the launch platform. We have the Crucible, all right, and there is coming soon a new product. So if you want to learn more about that, go to blog.alchemist.wtf, and you can actually read up on that new product and what it's going to be. Now, details at this moment are still a little bit sparse, but it revolves around NFTs and increasing the liquidity around NFT markets. All right, so that's announcement number one. Number two, MISTX, the famed DEX, one of the, if not the, now don't quote me, but one of, for sure, the first DEXs to build in maximum extractable value, MEV, front-running protection. The MISTX DEX is being sunsetted. So what does that mean? It effectively means that that project is now coming to a close, and those resources are going to be redirected throughout the rest of the Alchemist ecosystem. So it is not a goodbye. Perhaps it is a see you later. In either case, it is a farewell for now. So if you want to learn more about that, also head over to the blog, and there is a more detailed write-up about that particular development. Third, Crucible, the Crucible project is working on a significant change as far as how the reward programs are launched. And in addition to that, there are now leaderboards that you can check in on related to the Crucible. And fourth, Copper is working on a couple of game-changing features, which should be out over the next couple of months. So I would say jump into the Discord for sure. You know, you can @ Re, and I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions to the extent that he can about what is going on with the Copper launch platform. All right, now those are the updates, and without further ado, let's go ahead and let's introduce our guest today. So, our guest is a Kiwi, but that doesn't tell you very much, right? But what this gentleman here is working on and his team, they are building a platform that really opens up the internet to truly create something that is borderless. Because as I'm sure you are aware, we have VPNs, we have these tools that are supposed to allow people to be able to browse and use the internet in a borderless fashion, but they all come with their unique hiccups or their unique hangups. And so what our guest today is doing is actually building out something known as the MASQ Network, MASQ protocol, and they are truly leveraging decentralized technologies and blockchain technologies to provide a solution that has not yet been seen before, and it hinges upon some technology that I won't pretend to be able to explain to you as well as he can. So please, without further ado, welcome our guest, Kauri. Great day, mate. How are you? Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, great day. As they say down here, good day, mate. Not as Aussie as the Aussies, but yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So, like we always do it, if you could take a few moments and introduce yourself, provide a little bit of background to the extent that you find it helpful, and then give us an introduction to what you all are building with MASQ.
Sure, sure. So, I started the crypto journey much like a lot of builders in the space, back in a couple cycles ago now. So been in the game, in the scene about 6 years. And what attracted me straight away was the fact that, the blockchain technology itself was just such a amazing innovation. So for me, being very sort of technically minded and intellectual, it just drew me in straight away. So as you can say, I didn't just step down the rabbit hole. I kind of just dived in, dived down at first, and I still haven't reached the bottom. I don't think anyone will. But through that, I just learned so much about how everything is interconnected. It opened areas into stuff that we're working on now. Through different ways that blockchain technology can integrate with real life uses. Web3, NFTs, I've kind of dabbled in it all. But it's not my original background. I actually went to university and worked for a while as an engineer, which is probably where I get some of my technical insight into things. But yeah, it's a passion of mine, and I'm always looking for ways to work with other smart people in the space. If you're the dumbest person in the room, that's a good thing. And often I find myself humbled by a lot of the people around me. So, it's allowed me to grow a lot, especially in the last few years. So, in terms of coming into MASQ, I know some of the people listening are probably starting their journeys here in crypto and in the blockchain innovation space. And, you can start from anywhere. So for me, I had no experience in crypto until I jumped on and first bought a little bit of Bitcoin, and I just started chatting in communities. And if you look where I've come now, I'm leading a project called MASQ Network. And what our vision is rooted in is a borderless future where people cannot be censored or geo-blocked from general content online. So there's a huge part of the world where people are oppressively censored, in large countries like China and like Russia. You can see some of that now with the conflict going on over there, and just general, repressive regime control on people. And it's even on simple things like not being able to access YouTube, Google, TikTok, those things that interconnect people. So our vision for that is that anyone can run our software, travel to any website, any service that's offered online, and be able to use it in a way that's secure, that's private. It's not going to reveal the personal information. But number one, and I'll probably mention it a few times, is the user experience is the most important. So blockchain has so much technical aspects to it. It's a very complex space. The farther you dive in, the more complex it can be. We just want to make it as easy as possible. So the people don't need to know, the users don't necessarily need to know all the ins and outs of how it works, just that it works and that it's a good experience. So we feel like we've really achieved that now at this point, and we're really excited. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a roundup on where we're coming from.
Definitely. Thank you for that. I think that, when people, obviously very, very few people are native to this sector by default. And to be native to it, you would have had to be working on encryption and cryptography and all of that. decades ago. So I always find it informative to hear about where people came from, because it usually can give you an idea of what motivated them to approach the sector or jump in the way that they did. And so your background in engineering makes a lot of sense when talking about something that is a very technical project, something that is very specification driven and has a lot of nuance to it that you won't necessarily get from some other projects that might be more focused on, taking something that from a technical level might be relatively straightforward, but truly optimizing for UI or graphical interface or something to that extent. So from my understanding, you're the co-founder, but you're also the lead on the project. So what was it, would you say that, and we'll get into more about the specifics of, the distributed mesh network and that sort of technology that you all are working on, but what was it that made you or gave you the instinct to say, okay, we could build the best browser from a technical perspective in the world, but if the user experience is not on point, it will be for naught. So is that something that you had already learned prior in your experience? Was it something that some of these last cycles made you attuned to? Was that something that you had peers on your team bring to your attention? And what have you all decided at MASQ? How have y'all gone about trying to optimize that experience for people?
Yeah, it's a very insightful question, because some of the roots and the origin story is important. And where we didn't come up with the original idea. In fact, it's been in terms of the very, very core fundamental concepts, it's been tried and done in many ways in the past. And so there was a bit of an opportunity from the last cycle where another project had sort of made some progress in this area, had some of the basis of the concepts, the working concepts, but sort of, really didn't take it far enough to make it a success. And so I was involved in some of those communities, and a couple of other passionate people. We became friends over the last cycle, and we said together, hey, this is sort of coming to an end with this current code base. Basically, it was a code base that was going stale. And we said, look, we've always had this constructive feedback for where we think it could go. The vision is sound. Who doesn't want a free and open internet? In its true design from the original creator, right? For the web, the World Wide Web in itself. And so we kind of put together some minds and said, we could really try and do this, guys. I mean, let's really try and keep this vision alive, create our own team, get people that are passionate, that have certain skills that we think could drive us forward. And we were very blessed to keep on board one of the core developers who was just super passionate about it, just as much as us. And he's been the core, tech advisor for us, continuing to develop it. So, from those humble beginnings, we just started as just like a really small team, just meeting, like it was actually only once a month at the beginning, just talking about it, saying, hey, what did you guys work on? What things do you think you can contribute to? And it was like, it kind of reminds me when I look at some of the old interviews of Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, like who we see as like the elite business creators of these massive megacorps now. And they all start, a lot of them started out of a garage. And I was thinking, we kind of did the same. Yeah. We sat with a group and just huddle once a month. And then we started getting attraction from people who liked, this vision. We had this idea to keep paving the way forward for an uncensorable internet. And so, yeah, from there it developed, and we had a unique opportunity with an advisor who liked us, came on board and said, look, I can help you really jumpstart to get yourself, in a way where you'll have basically a market where people can look at that and say, I want to get involved, and have an actual utility token as a core part of it, because it's essential in a lot of ways on a technical basis too. And that propelled us forward. So, with that, I did want to point out, we're proud that we never did an ICO. We never did massive fundraising, public sales or anything. It was basically all from donations from the community, from our advisor who really helped us push forward, and self-funded. and we've come all this way. I think to us looking at the bear market ahead, sure, it's a bit scary, but we started in a bear market. So to us, it's like, a bit of a circular approach. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of how our humble beginnings came. So I'll never try and own the idea myself. It wasn't mine to start with, but I feel like I've just been raising it like a small child to hopefully into it. A not so boisterous teenager, a teenager that's obedient. When we say, do this code, it will do it.
And then therein lies the difference between code and children. You want your code to be obedient. You want your children to be wise and to be aware. And also, too, kudos, man. I read through the blog post that you wrote back, maybe it was June or July of 21, where you kind of we're trying to speak to your community more directly, made that analogy about the first child that you brought into the world and the child you'd been helping raise for nearly a decade, and how that feeling was similar in the project that you were working on. And that may seem very tangential to anybody listening, but I think it's a key thing to point out, because especially in this sector, let alone technology as a whole, you see so many companies or products or services pop up, but then they might disappear or fizzle out over 3 months, over 6 months, over a year. And often the reason is the buy-in is not there, or it's not strong enough. And I think part of that, and you touched on this in your article, was the underlying mission and the motivation and your relationship to that outcome, wanting to see that outcome come to fruition. And so I think it could be a good place to transition into what you saw, or what the team saw, as fundamental issues with existing technologies that are supposed to provide an open browsing experience. Because, especially the audience that listens to this podcast, that are part of the Outcomes community, part of the MASQ community, these are people who I would wager are familiar with the Tor browser, are familiar with different VPNs. And I saw that you all kind of put a comparison sheet on your GitHub documentation, but could you walk us through what you all saw as potential downsides to these other alternatives, and how MASQ strives to reconcile those shortcomings?
Yeah, no, that's a great topic to get into, because all the tools we have now, they're all great, and anyone who is involved with building or doing some kind of development, or, I'm not going to try and quote Elon Musk all the time. Like, he's not my idol or anything, but he did say something which I think about a lot. And he said, I really, in my own words of what I remember him saying, he said, I really, value people who build products, because it's painful. It's hard. You're going to have failures, you're going to have successes, and it's always iterating in a way, because users will always give you feedback of, this is what worked for us, this is what didn't work, this is what we liked, this is what we didn't like. So, without the current tools we have, like VPN, like Tor, like other privacy tools and utilities, we wouldn't be able to build what we have at MASQ, because all those things have taught us what works, what doesn't. So it's a natural evolution of a solution to get us to where we really want to meld all these benefits and take away any disadvantages that they've had. So, just touching on the ones people commonly use, VPN, the growth of the VPN market's been huge in the last, say, 5 years. I think by 2024, it's supposed to grow to over 70 billion in revenue yearly, and that might just be in the major markets, but you've got emerging markets who are all using it. And it's, conceptually, it's quite a simple product. You basically sign up with a subscription, and you're funneling your traffic, or tunneling, I should say, your traffic to a group of servers, and they imitate that you're in a different location. So you are encrypted during that. But there's a few disadvantages to doing that, and namely that you don't get to keep full anonymity, because you're paying for the service, right? So typically people will pay with a credit card. There's very few VPN services now that offer a crypto payment, although if they do, you still have to provide your name and details as a customer. And then you've got places like India, who've now made it a lot stricter for those companies to operate. So I talked to one of our team who was in India, and he said it's more of a guidance note now to the population. It's not so much a law where you're going to be severely punished, but basically the government and the the Indian authorities, they just want to know they can find who the customers are if they ever need to. So, you've got some levels of privacy. So with that side of it, what we've done in MASQ is we've taken away what we saw was the core weak point, which is central servers. So being a mesh network, the network itself can be thousands of users, if not hundreds of thousands. And all these different users are typically people who just are browsing, but also some of them are serving. So they would operate as what we call an exit node. And that means that they're delivering traffic for you. So if I'm a user and I want to browse on MASQ and say I want to go to Twitter, it will hop through a few users and deliver the content for me based on where that end user might be living. So if I'm somewhere where it's banned, for example, Russia, I might be getting that traffic from someone in Japan, someone in Australia. So we've gotten that concept from that. So we've removed the personal identifiers because crypto allows you to do things with blockchain through permissionless way. With Tor, so Tor again, we couldn't be here without the concepts Tor, and the old Navy research group of people, how they invented it. And essentially Tor was made to mask, for the lack of a better term, mask traffic from, being any point on its pathway where it started and where it's going to end. So really, some of the core concept of that's called onion routing, where if you envision an onion and you're peeling off the outside layer, there's another layer underneath. That's how it is transported. So you might have your data in the middle, which is the core, and you've got 3 layers on the outside. So we adopt that concept too. The weak point of Tor, again, it's a great tool. A lot of people use it, but it's got ways to be controlled, tracked, and restricted as well. So with Tor, you've got a public list of exit nodes around the world, which are constantly updated. And those are used because in their design, there's a part of the system which pulls from that directory where your route needs to be made. But if anyone in the world could see that list, that means the ones who don't want us to use it can see that list. So they can actively block it, which is, again, happening in that Russian regime. They're blocking exit nodes for Tor, and they're blocking ways that users can use it. But also Tor, with the Onion network that they have, Onion sites, it's very identifiable. So anyone who wants to try and do things as if they're not doing something on Tor, it's easily identifiable that they're a Tor user. So we've mitigated that too, because our traffic looks like typical traffic. So if I'm browsing and I want to go to a website, someone who pulled out a packet out of my data stream, it's just going to look like a normal encrypted data packet. It's not going to look like I'm using MASQ unless you did some very, very deep analysis. But our ultimate vision is to make our traffic clandestine. And what that means is if someone did take a piece of data out from my stream, they will not know that I'm using MASQ because it's going to look like something else. It's going to look like maybe a Zoom voice over IP call packet. It might look like a gaming packet from Call of Duty. It might look like an email. It might look like anything. So we can masquerade it. And that's actually how we came up with the name for MASQ Network, was MASQ in masquerade. So yeah,
can I jump in and ask
story for us?
Can I ask a follow-up? So to the extent that you can divulge that, because obviously I don't want you giving away anything that you can't, but at the same token, from my understanding, this is an open source project. How are you all able to do that? Is that like a technique that is contingent upon the users being able to serve as nodes? How does that actually work, that you're able to hide those packets of data like that?
Yeah, so fundamentally, it's the way it's encrypted. And so what happens within MASQ, there's its own protocol of how traffic is sent. It's called the CORS protocol, and it stands, there's an abbreviation that's on our documentation. But basically, it's a way that the data is encrypted. And then extra data can be put at the beginning or the end. So the data packet can remain the same size. On the technical level, one reason why Tor traffic is more identifiable is as the farther along a route your data is handed off, because each layer is pulled away. If you look at an onion, every layer you pull off the onion's smaller, right? So if you're trying to use data inspection to analyze traffic going back and forth, if you see a packet getting smaller and smaller and smaller, they're
you're
like, hey,
closer.
bing, bing, bing. Yeah, that's getting to a route. That must be a Tor packet, right? So the way we've done it is we put rubbish data, which is just a bunch of bytes at the start or the end, to make that data look the same size all the way. And on top of that,
elegant.
we're going to, yeah, it's elegant, right? And I forget, our tech advisor had a way that he described that term. I'll have to look through my notes at some point. It wasn't as elegant as I'm probably saying it. There's a way to describe it. But on top of that, we're going to design it so the packet goes into someone's router through a common port. So another technical aspect of Tor and other things like that is usually they use a specific port where your router's saying, I know this data coming through this port 1234 is for this protocol. When we masquerade our data at MASQ, we're going to make it go through common ports that are used for other stuff. So Call of Duty might use, and some people who game on their PC, how you might have to set up a port forward. Call of Duty might use, every single user, millions of users around the world might use port 5678. Well, if we just make our data go through that port, no one knows that it's MASQ data until it's unencrypted in their machine using our software. So it's quite elegant the way we've disguised things using common technology, but not in a way that breaks anything. I think that's fundamentally our pathway to success, is that we've made our whole project interoperable with current technology. So you won't need to buy a special router. You won't need to buy or do any special technical stuff. You just download the software and install it, and the rest is taken care of.
Nice. So that brings us back to the general user experience. So when somebody is joining the MASQ network and they decide that, okay, I don't just want to be a user of this network, I want to help, kind of like somebody who might use a file sharing service, and they're like, all right, once you're done downloading, you now can seed that information for others to also be able to download it more quickly. How does that work on the tail end of it? I imagine this is like an APK or a download file that they need to put on their computer. What's the compatibility of that? And also, can somebody simultaneously be using the MASQ browser and also be, so let's say we're doing the Zoom call right now. We get off Zoom, but I'm still open in the browser. Do I need to click some switch to turn myself or to enable the act of me actually being able to serve as a node, or does that happen dynamically when I'm not actively uploading or downloading data personally?
Yeah, that's that's actually a very, very good question, because early on we realized that users like choice. Some of the greatest softwares that we use every day, you can see that if they're rich with options, then they can appeal to more users, because users feel they've got power to control what they do, what they don't do. And just on a little tangent, I think that's why people in general, even the younger tech enthusiasts who are coming up from our generation, they're appreciating privacy more and control over their own information more, because they realize how powerful it is. So when they use software or use apps, they're going to start thinking more, and they already are, what permissions does this app use? What information am I, on here? Yeah. You probably look now, right? You look at the app like, oh, has it got permission to my mic? Can it turn it on whenever it wants? GPS. Not to directly compare ourselves a lot to competitors in the space, but what we did notice is that a lot of competitors have offered two separate applications for some of their solutions, where one is for someone who wants to just use it and get the privacy browsing and get that borderless browsing. and a separate software for someone who wants to be that node provider to share their bandwidth. So, and it would require a little bit more technical knowledge to install that other one. So what we've done, and thankfully it was functionally built into our core software, is that a user can do both with the same software. So you install one software. If you want to browse, you can, but if you want to serve the network and share your bandwidth, because maybe you do have a really nice connection and you're living in a fairly, what we consider quote unquote free country, you want to just help out the rest of the world, you can turn on serving and you would act as that routing and exit node for other users. If you want, I can do a little screen share now. I've got this
here
perfect with the dashboard too.
Please, that would be great.
All right. Because when you said, hey, is there a button I can press? I'm like, how about I just show you?
Right on. The beauty of Zoom.
Oh, yeah. So hopefully you can see that screen.
Definitely.
All right. So this is a standalone software itself. So I know you asked, it was actually a very good point. If I'm using Zoom and I maybe just want to browse with MASQ, do I have to connect something? Do I have to change something? So at the moment, we've got an option in this software where I can make this MASQ network traffic only in the browser within this window. I've turned it on so you can see I'm on a globe. It's telling me I'm going through 3 hops and I'm ending in Denmark. So if I go to Google, it's probably going to give me a Denmark Google site. But whatever I'm doing in this window is through the MASQ network. So my Zoom call with you is still through the normal connection. And you can see Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Google page from Netherlands. If I want to change the traffic, I won't do it because it might disrupt our call, but I could actually change my browser, my MASQ setting to be system-wide. And that would mean that every HTTP connection or data request on my whole machine will start going through MASQ. And we're working at a few kinks with that because, openly there are some softwares that don't play nice. Some of them need a custom port. Discord, for example, uses a proxy. So there's a few things which aren't just right out of the box supported. But technically, you can use both options. Now, also because we're on Zoom, I didn't activate serving. But to answer your other question, let's say I want to share my connection. I want to help the network. But most importantly, what's in it for me? I kind of want to earn a little bit of my sweet MASQ, to run my browsing. I'll go to the serving tab and say I want to serve, and I'll click that, and it'll activate serving for me and test my router, make sure I'm a stable connection. And most importantly, I can choose various filters. So let's say I'm conscious that I don't want my node to be used for traffic that's, undesirable or malware or maybe even adult related content. I don't want my machine and network connection to be used for that. I can pick safe DNS services like Cloudflare Family, like these other options. And those are there so I can actually control what my node's being used for around the world. So part of that user experience, we really, really thought hard about it, saying, well, what types of options do the users want? Which types of filters or options do they really feel they would need to feel comfortable using something like this? And that's kind of how we got to that. So what you're seeing is a live experience on the MASQ browser.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's slick for anybody that can't see this. It's something that looks very familiar, but puts the choices that you need right in front of you. So I think that you all did a great job from the user experience standpoint. So how about we do this? Let's go ahead. Let's take a quick break so we can get a word from our sponsors. And then when we come back, we will do the over-under section. And then we finish up with that. We'll get into our alpha, and then we'll close it out and let you give your final words to the people before we get out of here. All right.
Sure thing.
Quick word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back with Kauri from MASQ. Builders, beginners, degens, no matter who you are or what your experience is in crypto, we invite you to join us in the Alchemist community. We're proud to be a community-built project that brings together some of the most talented builders and passionate community members who are all here to support each other as we build world-changing products that promote a more open, fair, and transparent financial system. If you're ready to join the revolution, want to fulfill a role in our community, or just have questions about what Alchemist is all about, jump into our Discord and join in the conversation at discord.alchemist.wtf. For those that missed it, that's discord.alchemist.wtf. Join us. We can't wait to have you. All right, now we are back with Kauri from MASQ, and what we're going to go ahead and jump into is the over/under section. Y'all know how this goes. We'll throw out a couple of buzzwords. Some might be a little bit more interesting than others, given the subject matter. But either way, we put the guest in the hot seat. So, you ready to begin?
I'm ready.
Okay, first one: VPNs.
Ooh, I'd say a bit underhyped today. You know, they offer a lot of, service protection and whatnot, but they have limitations, and that's sort of why we're building what we're building. But I guess they play a part in the space. We just want to get more people able to use that technology,
Okay. Cloud Wi-Fi, so things like Starlink, Helium, those sort of things.
Underhyped for sure. I think I've been very impressed by the way Helium's grown. Like they've just got such a good user adoption rate. And you look at how much they've expanded. To be honest, we at MASQ would love to integrate that type of thing. Maybe some people saw my tweets about it. A little secret is I did get Starlink, and it's at my house, and I've actually used it over MASQ. So really, you could say it's MASQ Link is live too.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about. All right, bet. Yeah. Internet of Things.
Ooh, I mean, personally, I think it's a little overhyped a bit. I mean, the use cases are there, but they're just the rollout of them has been a bit slow. And I think we've had a lot of distractions. If you're talking about the crypto space, a lot of distractions this cycle. It was very, very focused on DeFi, very focused on yield. And some of those things that are like probably things that we would love to use in real everyday stuff. It's getting a bit it's a bit unnoticed. There's definitely some amazing projects out there. I mean, it is the future. But, you go back to how is that such a thing going to work in a wide variety of devices and whatnot. I think decentralization's got to be a big part of it. You might have seen the Cloudflare outage the other night or last night. I mean, if everything in the Internet of Things was all based on a very small amount of central servers and that might have been the provider, well, hey, all your Internet of Things connections might just fall off because one provider didn't go. So, I think it's got a future. It definitely has a future, but at the moment, I haven't seen as many of the use cases as we'd like.
Smart cities and smart grids.
Yeah, that would be so cool. I really want to see it though. I was actually talking with a friend the other day about, is it Charlie Shrem who's got an island and he's building like basically a crypto city or a small island where everything is Internet of Things and crypto. I think it's him. That'd be cool. If you visited a place like that, you'd probably not want to leave if you're someone like us.
I'll just say personally, it's same with this crypto thing, right? It's, in my humble opinion, it's all about how it is executed. Because when you track everything, you track everything. And I guess, the example that I often point to is kind of like the social credit system that they have going on in certain countries and how people can begin to get punished in a way that always follows them around because everything that they're doing is tracked and then associated with their biometrics, their gates, all this other stuff. And when it's going well, it's very convenient, but if the wrong people come in and start to, enforce weird things based on this data that comes through, then I personally think it could get out of hand quickly, personally. So
no, I do agree. I got to agree with that. I think that's, in a way, that's what scares me a little about all the, the governments of the world pushing for central bank digital currencies, because once that happens, there's no going back, right? We've got a cashless society at the moment, but cash isn't tracked. And so, once that happens, there's no going back. And let's say you piss off the wrong people, man, like you can't go buy your beers from the gas station. They might have blocked you.
Yeah, no, it's wild. So, we're in this space and we get to, have our little say on the way that the pendulum swings. So I think that's dope. Yeah. NFTs.
NFTs. I mean, the use cases, I always kind of think of use cases. You can see how I guess, answered some of these. I think it's overhyped only because of what we've seen in the last cycle with the rise of them and kind of the fall of them. You see these big names with a lot of clout because they're the OGs, like Bored Apes and CryptoPunk. It's like a status symbol. I think what you're seeing now is the societal shift of what people perceive as valuable. The best NFT communities, and I have some I really believe in and think are great. The best ones, it's not because they actually are super amazingly made, although some of them look nice and whatnot. The people in the community give it value. Like it's almost like branded clothing, right? Why is Gucci $3,000 for a pair of pants? It's because society and a big group of people believe it is, right? You look at precious metals, gold and silver, right? Gold is almost 100 times as valuable on the market as silver is, but silver has thousands of more manufacturing uses. So if you think about it, why is gold more valuable? Well, it's because as a society for thousands of years, we've been obsessed with it in a lot of ways. I don't want to sound like Peter Schiff, but he's cut it down like for thousands of years. Gold has been like the epiphany of value in the human mind or the human perception. So what we're seeing is a lot of society shifted value perception on what they think is cool and valuable and whatnot, and that trade mechanism with the free market. But the actual use case of NFT, I think, is underhyped in the sense that I think it has real ways to be used in society with an ownership part. Like imagine if an NFT was a house, a deed for a house, and you could just go, boom, it's now owner of another person. Now if they got hacked, it's like someone shows up and this is my house. I have the NFT. It's
that's when people start taking hardware wallets real seriously.
I know, right? But it could be something that really revolutionizes the way we design legal ownership of things, and something I'm keeping an eye on too related to that is that soulbound NFT soulbound tokens that Vitalik wrote a paper on, because imagine if you get a degree and that's bound to you. How do you recover it? That's the other part of the solution. But yeah, I think I'd say, I don't know, am I allowed to do that? Over, under? I'm in the middle on NFTs.
No. You elaborated on it. Decentralized identity.
Yeah, that's big. I think it's I think it's underhyped. It's getting a lot of attention. It's getting a lot of attention on socials and projects trying to achieve it. How they will, I think, is still a little gray, because it kind of relates back to like, well, what happens if you are holding a certain NFT and then it is moved to someone else? It's not you anymore, right? Like, can you build a fake identity and then pass it to someone? So it's kind of dependent on how it's trustlessly verified as being real. But I think the use case and the way it should be used is important because, in my mind, if it was a way where you could choose what personal information you share at any given time, that would be amazing. Because, right now, what's your most sensitive information you have? Like, I guess in the States, your social security number would probably be one of the most sensitive, or medical information, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you had all that stuff in one token or one representation of a digital ID, you don't want anyone getting that to see everything. So if you could filter it, I think that would be an amazing way to push that idea. So I think it's underhyped in the way it can be used. But yeah, there's a lot of projects trying to approach it. I mean, I'm excited to see which ones actually really come out with a really good structure to see that that be used in everyday life.
On that note, I would say if you aren't super familiar, I would suggest looking into Luxo from Fabian Vogelsteller and Marjorie Hernandez. There was an interview that Fabian did with Camilla Russo at the Defiant. And he talks about user profiles and kind of the obfuscation or the abstraction of private keys and that sort of thing to really facilitate profiles that can follow you along that are on blockchain, but are a lot have a lot less friction than the way that they're kind of handled these days. Yeah,
I'll definitely look into that because they're critical to Web3 though. I do feel, and we kind of didn't talk as much about Web3, but it's one of those areas that a lot of people grab that term and say, hey, we're doing this in Web3, but really Web3 is still so new. It's like not defined, it's not actually defined exactly. And there's all these pieces of the puzzle that are still on the table, not quite fit together. But I think decentralized ID is absolutely part of it. And how you transfer maybe not so much a reputation, but like a verified user profile between platforms, between pieces of Web3. That's going to be very important for the future.
I couldn't agree more. All right. So before we head out of here, if you could leave some sage advice and wisdom for our listeners in this, what we call alpha.
Okay. Yeah, I've listened to a lot of these sections with different people I respect in the space. So, I'm going to try and be a little different. But I think the number one thing is sleep faster. Arnold Schwarzenegger said that. If you want to get good at something, you got to hustle. You got to pull extra hours. My team laughs at me sometimes. They say, "When do you sleep, mate?" Because I do have children, and they're like, "How are you doing this stuff at different times?" I've got a very supportive wife, and she knows what I'm doing. But I think, there is a level of hustle to get ahead in the space. But those who hustle during the bear markets are the ones that become the next successful people. You don't really get, anyone can jump into something in a bull market and say, yeah, that was great. Look at what I did, because you got all this hype and momentum behind you. But the real returns are what's built in a bear market or a downtrend, when certain people lose faith and the uncommitted or undisciplined sort of fall off. But the next few years, depending on how this bear market plays out, you'll see a lot of washout of the things that were hype-driven, vaporware, as I call them, where there's lots of promises and people jumped on saying, wow, this is the next sliced bread. It's amazing. And they just, don't deliver. Each cycle, I feel people get more smarter. Well, you'd hope so, but some of them get more smarter what to identify as really solid projects and use cases. But if you want to be a builder, this is a perfect time. Don't let what the market's doing discourage you. If you think of it, markets, again, economic theory is a very important thing to even just read lightly about. But something in the market is valued by the majority, right? The ones who are the innovators are the ones that see something in the minority or see something that the majority of the market doesn't see. And they develop a passion and a skill set around building it, and they do it, and that takes off. So if you want to get involved in something now as a Web3 builder or as just a builder in the space of crypto, don't be afraid to jump into something, try and learn about it. So what's cool now, there's so many DAOs out there that are just looking for people to give time. You don't have to be an expert. There's ways to experiment and try things. And the DAO, if you're jumping into a DAO and they say, I'd love for someone to do this, and then you do the task and they say, hey, it's not up to scratch. That's learning experience. And that means the next time you do it or the next DAO you join and try and contribute to, you're going to be better. And I think that's why we've seen a rapid expansion of innovation in the space, is that this younger generation, there's always this hey, boomer, you don't understand. The boomer generation's watching us clamber over each other for $1 million NFTs, and they think we're crazy, right? But the real revolution that's happened is that the younger crowd has made a space for themselves. they're moving away from traditional value-based skill sets. Like you can go to a trade school and become a builder. Great. That's very important. You can go to a university, get an expensive degree. Will you use it? Well, you see more and more successful people who they get to where they are without a degree, right? So this new generation has seen the space that we're in with blockchain, Web3, crypto, and you can learn everything with the University of YouTube, Google Fu. You can pretty much learn the basic skills that previously you had to be a data scientist to do stuff like this with computers. It's all built now with ways you can template it. So summarize it, jump into something that you really feel passionate about. Don't worry if you fail, because you're going to learn along the way, and just try and find projects that value effort. And you're going to have to sleep less though. To get good at something, you're going to have to sleep faster, as they say.
Right on, man. Right on. Well, thank you, Kauri. This has been awesome. I definitely think the people are going to love this one. Before we get out of here, if you could please let the people know where they can find you, where they can find MASQ, how they can support, how they can get involved, and that'll close it out for us.
Oh yeah, awesome. First of all, I want to give a shout out to you. Thank you for letting me come on board your podcast and share my thoughts and have some good questions and dialogue with you. I've really enjoyed your previous episodes with other important people in the space. And thanks to Alchemist too for building an amazing community. Part of what I said in my ending statement was definitely really, really valuable and core features I see in your community, in your DAO type organization where people can jump in and contribute. So thanks to all of you. We wouldn't be here without you. And you've helped us along the way too. We really want to invite anyone who wants to learn more, come check us out. The basic places to find us, definitely in our Discord, which is just discord.gg/mask with a Q. You can find us in there. You can jump in and learn how to use that beta software I showed you today. You can contribute. You can learn how to run the node itself, the software, and even just learn more about how our vision is taking us into a real Web3 type of experience. Follow us on Twitter. It's twitter.com/mask_AI, and support our token. I feel like there's a lot of good opportunities out there in the space. We're one of them. Take that how you will, but just a reminder, we're the sole Crucible Polygon reward pools at the moment. If you like that new brand, they're very, very. I love that new logo that Crucible made. Hop on there, go to the Polygon Network, and you'll see 2 of our reward subscriptions there. I think they're doing very well at the moment, even with the market change. So that's another way you can get involved. But yeah, we love talking about all this stuff, borderless browsing, freedom. If you have something you want to talk about, jump in, talk with us, learn more, and hopefully see you all, in the near future.
Excellent. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on, Kauri. Thank you for shedding light on what you all are doing at MASQ, and thank you for building it, because it's definitely something that we need in this space. All right. So everyone listening, thank you all for joining us for another episode of The Lab. I am Sae'von Springer. It's an Alchemist podcast, and we will see y'all real soon in the next one. Peace.